Okay, so today we are diving into the incredible story of one cleric who decided to take on the entire political and religious establishment in two different countries. It's a story all about courage, corruption, and what happens when just one voice refuses to be silenced.
Just take a second to let that sink in. I mean, wow, that is an absolutely explosive statement. And get this, these words didn't come from some protester on the street or a political rival. They came from a Shiite cleric, Sheikh Yasser Auda, in a speech that went totally viral and, well, you can imagine, it set off a political firestorm. This was a direct shot at the powers that be.
And that really gets to the heart of what we're exploring today. What happens when someone from inside the religious establishment turns around and accuses the leaders of being liars and partners in crime? What are the consequences? I mean, how does a system like that react when one of its own breaks ranks so loudly and so publicly?
So you might be asking, why did Sheikh Auda's words hit so hard? Why did they resonate with so many people? Well, to get that, you first have to understand the system that he's up against. The anger he's tapping into, it didn't just appear out of thin air. It's been brewing for years, rooted in a political structure that so many people feel has completely failed them. At the very core of the problem, especially in Iraq, is a system they call muhasasa. Now, this was set up back in 2003, and the idea, at least on paper, was to give every major religious and ethnic group a seat at the table. But in practice, it's been widely blamed for creating a system that's just, well, it's ripe for corruption and total mismanagement.
And the real-world consequences of this system have been absolutely devastating. You have political parties treating entire government ministries like their own personal piggy banks. This leads to just massive mismanagement, the looting of state funds, and the decay of essential things like roads, hospitals, and the power grid. So you can see why this is the direct cause of the widespread anger that has fueled these huge protests we've seen in recent years.
Now, here's something else that's really important to understand. The religious establishment is not one single thing. It's not a monolith. There's this major internal split. On one side, you have the traditionalists, like the incredibly revered Ayatollah Sistani, who believe clerics should keep their distance from the day-to-day mess of politics. But on the other side, you have more politicized clerics who are deeply tied into political parties, and sometimes, yeah, they're implicated in the very system of corruption people are protesting. This context is absolutely key to understanding where a guy like Sheikh Auda fits into all this.
So, into this whole complicated mess of politics and religion, one voice began to really cut through all the noise. And not from some grand mosque or a fancy office, but from a pretty modest apartment in Beirut.
And this is the man himself, Sheikh Yasser Auda. For years, he's been using social media to build this reputation for his totally fearless and fiery criticism. He just hammers away again and again at the same themes: corruption, mismanagement, and the absolute failure of leaders in both his home country of Lebanon and in Iraq.
Now, he'd been a critic for a while, but one particular speech, well, it took things to a completely new level. It was this one event that triggered a massive, coordinated backlash from some of the most powerful institutions in the entire region. You can really see how things started to ramp up. Back in 2019, he was a very vocal supporter of those huge anti-corruption protests. But then came his speech in late 2025. Yep, the one we quoted at the start. And that just crossed a line for a lot of powerful people. By January of the next year, the establishment decided it was time to push back hard. And this question right here really gets to the heart of his message. He's asking these simple, powerful things that just connect so deeply with ordinary people. He's looking at an oil-rich country like Iraq and asking, how is it possible that the roads are falling apart while so many people are poor? He's drawing a direct line from the system's corruption to the people's suffering. So, in response to his growing influence, this multi-front pressure campaign was launched against him. And we're not talking about a few angry phone calls here. This was a coordinated effort by some seriously powerful political and religious figures to silence him for good. The first official shot was fired by a department inside Lebanon's top Shiite religious authority. They put out this statement naming 15 clerics who they said were unqualified to give religious guidance. And guess who was number one on that list? Sheikh Yasser Auda. It was a pretty blatant attempt to strip him of his religious legitimacy. What's really interesting, though, is that the council later kind of backed away from that statement, which hints that maybe there were some internal divisions about it.
And that was just the beginning. According to officials, religious leaders all the way over in Najaf, Iraq, wanted him silenced. Senior members of powerful Iran-backed groups were sending complaints, And back in Lebanon, the two dominant Shiite political forces, Hezbollah and the Amal movement, often called the Shiite Duo, were also putting on immense pressure.
In Auda's own words, these powerful groups create an environment that strictly prohibits any criticism. He's directly accusing them of being part of the system of mismanagement and corruption that has brought Lebanon to its knees. So he's not just talking about some abstract idea of corruption. He's naming names, some of the most powerful players in his own community.
So how did Sheikh Auda respond to this huge campaign to destroy his reputation? Did he back down? No way. Instead, he gave a name to what was being done to him, and he put into words the incredibly high price of speaking truth to power.
A moral killing, a killing that lacks a bullet. That is how Sheikh Auda described the campaign against him. It's such a chilling and powerful phrase, isn't it? He's saying they might not be trying to literally assassinate him, but they are trying to assassinate his character, his credibility, and his moral authority. They want to kill his voice without firing a single shot.
And yet, faced with this moral killing, his resolve has only gotten stronger. He has publicly stated over and over that he will not be silenced. He says he is ready to pay the price, even if that price is his own life. I mean, that is just an extraordinary display of defiance against an overwhelmingly powerful system.
And that brings us full circle. The story of Sheikh Yasser Auda really forces us to ask this question. In these systems that are built on absolute loyalty, systems that crush dissent, what is the real power of a single, determined voice that just dares to say no? What kind of impact can one person truly have against an entire establishment? It's something to think about.